The moon is so red tonight. It looks so close, like you could touch it. A beautiful omen.
Ancestors, we are going to rise this smoke. Bless this fire, guide our path.
We gather around this fire to share our stories. Yes, let the flames carry our words to the ancestors.
We must keep moving. Danger is close.
I sense it too. Which way?
This way. Stay close.
I'm with you.
Usually echoed across the hills during moonrise refused to sing. Children were hurried indoors, elders whispered prayers under their breath, and the air carried a strange feeling that something long forgotten had returned. In the heart of the village, under the glowing shadow of the blood moon, a story began to awaken. A story about two sisters whose bond was said to be stronger than fate itself. Many years ago, when the moon still shone bright and silver, twin girls were born to the respected herbal healer of Abney village. The villagers called them the Moon Twins, believing their arrival was blessed by the spirits that guarded the night sky. The first twin, Amara, entered the world with a quiet gaze and a calm presence that made even crying babies settle in her arms. The second twin, Xena, arrived moments later, loud and fierce, with eyes that sparkled like hidden fire. From childhood, they were inseparable, moving like reflections of each other. Where Amara brought peace, Xena brought passion. Where one listened, the other spoke. The villagers adored them both, yet whispers often followed them, saying the balance between their spirits was too delicate to last forever. As they grew older, their differences became more noticeable. Amara spent her days learning ancient healing secrets from their mother, gathering herbs at sunrise and speaking softly with elders who trusted her wisdom beyond her years. Xena, on the other hand, was drawn to celebrations, dances, and the stories told by wandering travelers who passed through Abney. She dreamed of life beyond the village borders, craving recognition and excitement that felt just out of her reach. Though they still shared laughter, a quiet tension slowly formed, hidden beneath their sisterly smiles. The turning point came during the annual Moon Festival, a sacred celebration where the villagers honored the spirits believed to protect them from darkness. That year, an old prophecy resurfaced, spoken by the village storyteller who had remained silent for decades. He warned that when the blood moon appeared, the Moon Twins would face a choice that could either protect the village or bring an ancient curse back to life. The prophecy spoke of jealousy, betrayal, and a secret buried deep within their family's past, a secret no one dared to explain fully. At first, the sisters laughed off the warning, believing it was just another old tale meant to entertain restless children. But strange events soon followed. Crops began to dry without reason. Animals refused to drink from the river. And every night, Xena claimed she heard whispers calling her name from the forest edge, promising her a destiny greater than anything Abney could offer. Meanwhile, Amara started noticing symbols appearing in her healing herbs, markings she had only seen in forbidden stories about lost spiritual rituals. On the night of the blood moon, as its crimson glow covered the entire village, the twins stood together at the sacred baobab tree where their lives had once been blessed. The wind howled through the branches, carrying voices only they seemed to hear. Xena stepped forward, her eyes filled with a strange determination, while Amara reached out, sensing a danger she could not fully understand. And just as the moon reached its darkest shade of red, Xena turned to her sister and whispered something that made Amara's heart stop, before disappearing into the forest shadows, leaving behind a silence that would change Abney forever. Amara stood frozen beneath the sacred baobab tree, her hands still stretched toward the empty darkness where Xena had vanished. The crimson glow of the blood moon painted the ground in deep shadows, making the forest look alive and restless. Villagers who had gathered for the moon festival slowly backed away, whispering among themselves, their eyes filled with fear and confusion. Some believed the prophecy had already begun to unfold, while others prayed it was only a misunderstanding. Amara could barely hear them. Her thoughts were trapped in the echo of Xena's final whisper, words that felt both like a warning and a promise she didn't fully understand. The village elders quickly called for the festival fires to be extinguished, something that had never happened in Abney's history. They believed the flames might attract spirits that walked freely during a blood moon. As darkness swallowed the celebration grounds, Amara was escorted back to her family hut, but she resisted, insisting that she needed to search for her sister. Their mother, once known for her calm strength, now looked shaken in a way Amara had never seen before. She clutched an old leather pouch tightly against her chest, refusing to meet Amara's eyes. The silence between them felt heavier than any storm cloud gathering over the village. As the night stretched on, Amara sat beside the doorway, staring toward the forest path where Xena had disappeared. Memories of their childhood began to surface, memories she had long forgotten or perhaps ignored. She remembered how Xena used to sneak out during full moons, claiming she felt drawn to the sounds of the forest. At the time, Amara believed her sister was simply chasing adventure. But now those memories felt different, like pieces of a puzzle she had never tried to complete. She also remembered overhearing arguments between their parents whenever Xena's restless behavior was mentioned. Their father would always fall silent, while their mother would whisper about forces that should never be disturbed. Before dawn, Amara noticed her mother quietly stepping outside with the leather pouch. Curiosity and fear pushed her to follow from a distance. The older woman walked toward a hidden part of the village where ancient stones formed a small circle used only by spiritual guardians. Amara watched as her mother opened the pouch, revealing objects that shimmered faintly in the moon's fading red light. There were dried herbs tied with red thread, carved wooden symbols, and a small necklace Amara recognized instantly. It had belonged to their grandmother, a woman villagers rarely spoke about but often mentioned with cautious respect. Amara's heart pounded as she realized there were secrets in her family's past that had never been shared with her or Xena. She stepped closer, accidentally snapping a dry branch beneath her foot. Her mother turned sharply, fear flashing across her face before it softened into deep sadness. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then her mother carefully gathered the objects back into the pouch and told Amara that some stories were meant to stay buried, especially during a blood moon. Her voice trembled as she warned Amara that searching for Xena without understanding their family's history could awaken things far more dangerous than losing her sister. Meanwhile, strange rumors began spreading across Albany as villagers reported unusual signs throughout the night. Hunters claimed they saw glowing footprints near the riverbank. Fishermen spoke of hearing distant singing coming from the forbidden part of the forest where no one dared to travel. Even the animals behaved strangely, refusing to enter certain areas as if sensing an unseen presence watching from the trees. Each story added to the growing fear that Xena's disappearance was connected to something older than the prophecy itself. As the first light of morning touched the rooftops of Albany, Amara felt a deep conflict growing inside her. She wanted to trust her mother's warnings, but her bond with Xena pulled her toward the forest with an urgency she could not ignore. Standing at the village edge, she noticed something that made her breath catch. Faint markings carved into the tree bark along the forest path. The symbols matched the ones she had seen hidden among her healing herbs. And as she traced one symbol with trembling fingers, she heard a distant sound drifting through the trees, a familiar voice calling her name, sounding both like Xena and like someone she had never met before. Amara pulled her hand away from the carved symbol, her heart racing as the strange voice faded back into the forest. The morning sun had begun to rise, but its warmth failed to reach the shadows between the tall trees. She looked back toward Albany village, where smoke from cooking fires slowly curled into the sky, a sign that life was continuing as if nothing had changed. But for Amara, everything felt different. The path in front of her seemed to carry a silent invitation, one she knew could lead her closer to Xena or deeper into a mystery she was not ready to face. Behind her, footsteps approached carefully. It was Kofi, one of the village hunters and someone who had grown up alongside the twins. He had always been known for his calm thinking and quiet loyalty. He told Amara that the elders had ordered no one to enter the forest until the blood moon cycle had fully passed. According to tradition, the forest during such a time was believed to blur the line between the living world and the spirit realm. But Kofi admitted he had noticed unusual changes too. He spoke of animal trails shifting direction overnight and birds abandoning their nesting grounds near the river. His concern for Xena was clear, yet he warned Amara that rushing into the forest without understanding what was calling her sister could put more lives at risk. Amara struggled with his words. She remembered how Xena used to challenge every rule the elders made, often teasing Amara for always following them. Yet Amara also knew her sister was not reckless without reason. Xena had dreams, ambitions and questions about their village history that no one ever answered honestly. As Amara stood there, she began to wonder if Xena's curiosity had led her to discover something forbidden, something their family had tried to hide for generations. Back in the village, Tension grew among the elders as they gathered inside the council hut. Some believed the prophecy meant one of the twins had been chosen by ancient forces tied to the blood moon. Others feared that old spiritual rituals, long abandoned, were trying to return through Xena's disappearance. Amara's mother remained silent during most of the meeting, her eyes fixed on the ground. When she finally spoke, she revealed that their grandmother had once served as a guardian of sacred knowledge connected to moon rituals meant to protect Ebony from spiritual imbalance. However, she refused to explain why those rituals had been abandoned or why their family stopped speaking about them. Her hesitation only deepened the elders' worries and created quiet suspicion among villagers who began to question whether the twins' birth had been part of a hidden destiny. Meanwhile, rumors continued spreading through Ebony. Some villagers claimed they saw a shadow moving along the forest edge at dusk, shaped like a person but fading whenever someone approached. Children spoke of hearing soft humming near their homes at night, a melody that felt strangely comforting yet unsettling. Farmers reported that certain crops were growing in unusual patterns, forming circles that mirrored ancient symbols known to represent moon cycles. These strange signs made villagers fear that the prophecy was not only about the twins but about the entire village being drawn into an unknown spiritual conflict. As sunset approached, Amara sat beside the river where she and Xena once played as children. She remembered how they would compete to see who could spot the moon's reflection first in the water. For the first time, Amara allowed herself to feel anger mixed with fear. She wondered why Xena had left without trusting her, why she had carried secrets alone. While lost in thought, Amara noticed something floating near the riverbank. It was a small bracelet woven from silver grass, one she had personally made for Xena during their last birthday celebration. Amara picked it up slowly, noticing it was damp as if recently dropped. As she stared at it, she heard rustling behind her. When she turned, she caught a brief glimpse of movement among the tall river reeds, followed by the same distant humming that villagers had described. The sound carried a familiar rhythm, one Xena used to hum when she felt nervous or deep in thought. Amara stepped toward the reeds, her pulse pounding, unsure if she was about to find her sister or step into a secret that had been waiting for generations to be uncovered. Amara pushed through the tall river reeds, her fingers trembling as she held Xena's bracelet tightly in her palm. The humming sound grew clearer with every step, floating through the air like a memory trying to take shape. The river behind her flowed slowly, almost too quietly, as if even the water was listening. The deeper she moved into the reeds, the more she felt a strange heaviness in her chest, a mix of fear and a growing sense that she was being guided somewhere she was not meant to find yet. Suddenly the humming stopped. The silence that followed felt sharp and unnatural. Amara froze, her breath shallow as she scanned the narrow clearing ahead. The ground was marked with faint circular patterns pressed into the wet soil, similar to the mysterious symbols villagers had been whispering about. At the center of the clearing stood a smooth stone half buried in the earth, covered with markings that glowed faintly under the fading daylight. Amara stepped closer, recognizing the shapes from her mother's hidden pouch and from the strange symbols appearing in her healing herbs. A cold realization crept into her mind that these markings were not random signs. They were messages, warnings, or maybe invitations. Before she could examine them further, she heard hurried footsteps approaching from behind. She turned to see Kofi emerging through the reeds, his face tense with worry. He told her the elders had sent watchers to guard the forest borders after more villagers reported seeing lights moving between the trees the previous night. Some believed the spirit realm was opening during the blood moon cycle, while others feared someone inside the village was unknowingly helping it happen. Kofi admitted he had followed Amara because he feared she might face something alone that even the elders could not explain. Amara showed him the bracelet and the glowing stone, her voice shaking as she explained the humming she heard. Kofi studied the symbols carefully, revealing that older hunters once spoke of hidden ritual grounds deep within the forest, places believed to hold spiritual gateways connected to ancient moon ceremonies. He warned that such places were abandoned because they were said to test the balance between loyalty and desire, often forcing those who entered to confront truths they were not ready to accept. His words made Amara's stomach tighten as she thought about Xena's restless dreams and her hunger for something beyond village life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the air around them began to change. A low wind circled the clearing, stirring the reeds and carrying a faint scent of burning herbs, though no fire could be seen. The glowing symbols on the stone grew brighter, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Then, from somewhere deeper in the forest, the humming returned, louder now and layered with soft whispers that seemed to echo Xena's voice calling Amara's name again. This time, the sound was followed by distant flickers of red light moving between the trees, reflecting the lingering glow of the blood moon rising once more. Back in Ebony Village, panic was spreading. Several elders claimed the protective charms placed around the village boundaries were weakening. Amara's mother, unable to hide her fear any longer, revealed to the council that the twins' birth had been tied to a forgotten spiritual oath made by their grandmother. She confessed that the blood moon prophecy was not only about choice but about a bond between sisters that could either restore balance or break a protection that had guarded Ebony for generations. However, she still refused to explain what that broken protection might release. Unaware of the full truth unfolding in the village, Amara and Kofi followed the growing red glow deeper into the forest. The trees thickened around them, their branches twisting together like they were trying to block the sky. The humming transformed into a haunting melody that Amara recognized instantly as Xena's voice, now filled with a strange confidence she had never heard before. As they reached the edge of a hidden forest clearing, Amara saw a silhouette standing beneath a towering ancient tree surrounded by floating red light. The figure slowly turned, revealing Xena's familiar shape, but the way she stood, calm and unmoving within the glowing symbols around her, made Amara hesitate. Amara stepped forward, her voice barely steady as she called out to her sister. The wind suddenly roared through the clearing, scattering leaves and dust into spiraling patterns around them. The red glow intensified, and the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate softly, as if something deep below the forest floor was beginning to wake. Xena lifted her hand slightly, her expression unreadable, and as her lips parted to speak, the glowing symbols surrounding her burst into blinding light, forcing Amara to shield her eyes, unsure if the next moment would bring her sister back to her or pull them both into the unknown. The burst of light slowly faded, but the air around the clearing remained charged, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Amara lowered her arm, her eyes struggling to adjust. Xena still stood beneath the ancient tree, surrounded by faint red patterns that hovered like drifting embers. For a moment, relief rushed through Amara as she saw her sister unharmed. But the relief quickly faded when she noticed the calm, distant look in Xena's eyes, a look that felt unfamiliar and deeply unsettling. Xena stepped forward slowly, her bare feet brushing against the glowing symbols etched into the ground. Her voice, when she finally spoke, sounded softer yet carried an echo that did not belong to her alone. She told Amara that she had been waiting, that the blood moon had revealed truths hidden from them since birth. She spoke of voices that had guided her through the forest, showing her memories she had never lived but somehow understood. She claimed those memories belonged to their grandmother, the guardian of moon rituals whose duty had been passed down through their bloodline. Amara shook her head, struggling to understand. She pleaded with Xena to come home, reminding her of their family and the fears spreading across Ebony Village. But Xena's expression tightened, and she revealed something that made Amara's chest tighten with dread. She explained that the prophecy was incomplete, that it never spoke about only one twin being chosen. According to what she had discovered, the moon twins were meant to stand on opposite sides of a spiritual balance, one protecting the village and the other opening a path to ancient forces connected to the blood moon cycle. The balance, she said, had already begun shifting the moment the symbols first appeared in Amara's healing herbs. Kofi stepped closer, his protective instincts rising as he sensed the growing tension. He warned Xena that whatever she believed she had discovered could put the entire village in danger. But Xena turned her gaze toward him with surprising sharpness, revealing knowledge that stunned both of them. She spoke of a hidden council decision made years before their birth, when the elders learned about the prophecy and secretly performed rituals to suppress one twin's connection to the ancient moon power. She claimed that Amara had been raised and trained as the protector, guided toward healing and harmony, while Xena's spiritual connection had been intentionally ignored, leaving her vulnerable to being drawn toward the forbidden side of the prophecy. The revelation hit Amara like a sudden storm. Memories of being chosen to study herbs, of elders praising her calm nature, and of Xena often being dismissed as restless began forming a painful pattern she had never questioned. She tried to speak, to deny it, but doubt crept into her voice. Meanwhile, the red glow around the clearing intensified, reacting to the rising emotions between the sisters. The ground pulsed beneath their feet, and faint cracks appeared along the symbol lines, releasing thin trails of glowing dust that floated upward like signals being sent into the night sky. Xena's voice softened again, but her words carried a sharp edge of sadness. She admitted she never intended to abandon Ebony. She only wanted answers about why she always felt like a shadow standing beside Amara's light. The voices in the forest, she said, showed her that the ancient moon ritual was not meant to bring destruction but to restore a forgotten balance that the elders had interrupted out of fear. However, she also confessed that once the ritual fully awakened, neither twin would have the power to stop it alone. At that moment, a low rumble echoed through the forest, deeper and stronger than before. The ancient tree above them shed glowing red leaves that drifted slowly to the ground, dissolving into light as they touched the symbols. From beyond the clearing, more whispers rose, blending into a haunting chorus that seemed to respond to Xena's presence. Kofi noticed shadows moving between the trees, tall and shifting, as if unseen watchers had gathered around the ritual ground. Back in Abony Village, the sky above the rooftops began reflecting the same red glow spreading through the forest. Villagers gathered in fear as protective charms cracked and fell from doorways. Amara's mother, realizing the ritual had advanced beyond what she feared, rushed toward the forest path despite elders trying to stop her. She carried the leather pouch, now glowing faintly, knowing the hidden objects inside might be the only connection left to the original oath that once protected the village. In the clearing, Amara stepped closer to Xena, her heart torn between anger, betrayal, and love for her sister. She asked Xena what would happen if the ritual continued. Xena hesitated, her calm expression breaking for the first time as she admitted she did not fully know. She only knew that stopping now could trap the spiritual forces halfway between worlds, causing consequences even the prophecy never described. As the rumbling grew louder, the glowing symbols expanded outward, forming a wide circle that began creeping toward Amara and Kofi's feet. The ancient tree split slightly down its bark, releasing a bright column of red light into the darkening sky. Xena reached out her hand toward Amara, her voice trembling as she urged her sister to step into the circle and complete the balance before the blood moon reached its peak again. Amara stared at the glowing ground inching closer, realizing that whichever choice she made next could decide not only Xena's fate but the future of Abony Village itself, as the forest wind rose into a powerful roar around them. Amara stared at Xena's outstretched hand as the glowing circle widened around them, the red light from the blood moon pulsing through the forest like a living heartbeat. The wind roared louder, bending the tall trees and sending leaves spinning through the air. Every instinct inside Amara screamed that stepping into the circle could change everything, yet the fear of losing her sister forever pressed even harder against her chest. She glanced back at Kofi, who stood frozen, his face filled with worry but also trust. He nodded slightly, as if telling her that this choice had always been hers to make. Amara stepped forward, her foot crossing the glowing line. The moment she entered the circle, the ground beneath her warmed, and the floating symbols brightened until they surrounded both sisters in a storm of red and silver light. A deep vibration spread through the clearing, rising from the earth and echoing through the ancient tree above them. Xena grabbed Amara's hand, her grip tight but trembling. For the first time since disappearing into the forest, tears filled Xena's eyes. She whispered that she never wanted to stand against her sister, only beside her, and that the voices guiding her had promised balance, not separation. As their hands remained locked, memories rushed through both of them like flashes of lightning. They saw visions of their grandmother performing moon rituals beneath the same ancient tree, standing between two glowing paths, one red and one silver. They saw elders from generations past making a desperate decision to weaken one path out of fear that the ancient moon power could overwhelm the village. The broken oath had slowly weakened Abony's protection, allowing spiritual forces tied to the blood moon cycle to search for balance again. The twins realized the prophecy had never been about choosing one side over the other. It was about restoring what had been divided. The red light suddenly surged higher, wrapping around Xena as the silver glow rose from beneath Amara's feet. The lights twisted together, forming a spiral that climbed into the night sky. The rumbling forest fell silent as the two forces merged, creating a powerful wave of energy that swept outward through the trees, across the river and toward Abony Village. In the distance, villagers watched as the crimson reflection in the sky softened into a glowing mix of red and silver, and the broken charms at their doorways slowly repaired themselves, glowing faintly once more. Back in the clearing, the ancient tree sealed its cracked bark, and the hovering symbols settled into the earth like resting fireflies. Amara and Xena collapsed to their knees, exhausted but still holding on to each other. The oppressive weight in the air lifted, replaced by a calm stillness that felt both peaceful and uncertain. Kofi rushed forward, helping them stand, relief clear in his eyes as he realized the destructive storm everyone feared had not come. Xena explained softly that the ritual was complete and the balance between the spiritual world and Abony had been restored. The whispers in the forest faded, and the haunting humming finally fell silent. For the first time in days, the sisters felt the forest breathe normally around them. They believed the prophecy had ended, and the village would be safe again. But as they prepared to leave the clearing, Amara felt something unusual against her palm. She opened her hand and found Xena's silver grass bracelet glowing faintly with a new marking woven into its strands, a symbol neither of them recognized. Xena noticed it too, her expression shifting from relief to quiet concern. At the same moment, far above the forest canopy, the fading blood moon flickered briefly, its red glow forming a thin shadow that stretched across the sky before disappearing. Neither sister spoke as they stared at the bracelet, sensing that while the balance had been restored, something new had been awakened, something that might not belong to the prophecy they had just fulfilled. And as they walked back toward Abony village under a calmer night sky, both sisters felt the same unspoken thought settle between them, that their story with the blood moon was not over, it had only changed its path. The walk back to Abony village felt longer than either sister remembered, though the forest had grown quiet and the heavy tension that once filled the air had faded. The moon above them slowly returned to its soft silver glow, no longer burning with the fierce red light of the blood moon. Amara and Xena walked side by side, their shoulders brushing occasionally, neither fully sure what to say after everything they had witnessed together. The forest, which had once whispered secrets and warnings, now felt calm, almost as if it was watching them leave with quiet approval. When they reached the village edge, they found groups of villagers waiting anxiously near the riverbank. News of the changing sky had already spread, and people gathered with mixed expressions of fear, hope, and curiosity. Amara's mother was the first to run toward them, her eyes filled with tears as she pulled both daughters into a tight embrace. For a moment she said nothing, simply holding them as though afraid they might disappear again. The elders soon approached, their faces serious but softened with relief. The protective charms around the village had stopped cracking, and the strange signs that haunted the farms and homes had faded with the blood moon's passing. That evening, the village gathered at the sacred baobab tree where the story had begun. The elders asked the twins to share what had happened in the forest, and for the first time, Amara and Xena spoke openly about the ancient moon ritual, the broken oath from generations ago, and how balance had been restored through their unity rather than separation. The villagers listened carefully, many realizing that fear of old powers had caused decisions that nearly destroyed the harmony they were trying to protect. The elders admitted their ancestors had hidden parts of the prophecy, believing secrecy would keep the village safe. Instead, it had allowed misunderstanding and jealousy to grow quietly over time. Amara's mother finally revealed the full truth about their grandmother, explaining how she had once carried the responsibility of guiding the moon rituals alone, a burden that eventually became too dangerous without balance. She confessed that her own fear of repeating that history made her hide the truth from her daughters. Her voice trembled with regret, but Amara and Xena held her hands, understanding that her silence had come from love, not betrayal. In the following days, life in Abony slowly returned to normal. Farmers found their crops growing steadily again, fishermen returned to calm waters, and children played freely without fear of shadows near their homes. However, the village also began rebuilding its traditions with new understanding. The elders decided to record the true story of the Moon Twins, making sure future generations would respect both the spiritual world and the importance of honesty within families and communities. Amara returned to her healing work, but now she carried deeper knowledge of the symbols and moon cycles, no longer afraid of them. Xena, instead of feeling like she lived in her sister's shadow, began learning the spiritual songs and rituals connected to the ancient moon power, using her bold spirit to explore traditions once forgotten. Together, they became guardians of balance, showing the village that strength could come from differences when guided by trust. Yet, one quiet night as the sisters sat beside the river, Amara noticed Xena absent-mindedly turning the silver grass bracelet around her wrist. The unfamiliar symbol woven into it still shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Xena admitted she sometimes felt a soft echo in her dreams, not threatening but unfamiliar, like a distant call waiting to be understood. Amara smiled gently, reminding her that some mysteries were not meant to bring fear but to remind them that the world held layers beyond what they could see. As the moon reflected peacefully across the river, the sisters sat in comfortable silence, knowing they had protected their village and restored a broken past. Their journey through jealousy, mystery, and the power of the blood moon had taught them that balance was not about choosing sides, but about standing together when darkness and light tried to pull them apart. And as the calm night wrapped around Abony, the story of the Moon Twins settled into village legend, a reminder that unity, truth, and courage could guide even the deepest mysteries toward peace.